Lampedusa is still fresh in everyone's mind. After all, some 300 people died trying to cross the Mediterranean in the hopes of finding a better life in the European Union. But not much seems to have changed. Just recently, there was a boat that sank off the Greek coast, also carrying irregular migrants. And therefore, and not surprisingly, the debate has risen once again. And with the Greeks taking the EU presidency, all eyes are on them to try and do something about it. The most recent boat tragedy occurred just off the Greek island of Farmakonisi. 12 irregular migrants on board died after the boat sank, which was actually being towed by the Greek Coast Guard at the time. The Greek government denies accusations of trying to abandon the migrants in Turkey, contrary to reports. I met with Greek MEP Nikos Chrysogelos to get his reaction to the tragedy.
In any case, we must say sorry as a country, as a government, because it happened, and then we must know well what happened there and who is responsible for that. But I have to say that's also a responsibility of the government, but also of the European Union, the Commission, because if you ask from a country to protect the borders, and then you say there is a Schengen Treaty and so on, and then at the same time you say we need a humanitarian migration policy, there is a conflict.
Despite that conflict, some countries such as Malta have had less mortality rates than others regarding irregular migration. I asked Maltese MEP Roberta Metsola why that is.
Well, Malta is at the forefront of abiding by its international obligations, which means when it's called on to carry out a search and rescue area, it does. Naturally, this means, of course, that it has sometimes found itself in the middle of a dispute between different and varying interpretations of international law with other countries such as Italy, which has led to these two countries having to have a dispute as to who would assume responsibility over the persons who are drowning at sea. One thing I can say, I represent the opposition party, which held the previous government until almost a year ago, and Malta at the time never shirked away from its international obligation and responsibility to save lives at sea.
Greece feels the burden of irregular migration should be taken on by the European Union as a whole. But that hasn't stopped MEPs from calling on the new EU presidency to do more about it. One such MEP is Véronique de Keyser. I asked her whether it's not too much to ask a financially crippled country like Greece to take on the huge issue of irregular migration.
Of course, on the ground, it is difficult for them. And of course, even this presidency, we must admit, is difficult for them. They must have a very restricted presidency, not using a lot of money, because the Greeks are saying, why are you paying for Europe now? No, they are in a difficult situation, but I think that this is a very important problem for them, and they want to be proud.
Solidarity is still the word that's being used by MEPs here in Strasbourg. But so is the word patience. And that's not too surprising given the fact that we're still in a state of recovery, which limits member states to just how much they can do. But the reality is irregular migration is on the rise. And as long as that's the case, the critics will only gain strength. So MEPs will have to start wondering just how much time they really have until that patience completely runs out. This is Smith-Meyer for JN1 at the European Parliament in Strasbourg.